And starting us off tonight, Glenn Kirschner. He's a former federal prosecutor and an NBC News legal analyst. Melissa Murray is a professor at NYU School of Law and an NBC News contributor. And Michael Steele is the former chair of the RNC and an MSNBC political analyst. We got a mega panel to dive right into this, guys, because this is, dare I say, a huge, what did Joe Biden say? It's a BFD? That's what this is. Glenn, I want to start with you. What in the world was the Justice Department doing here, and why?
So we've seen this reported as a leaks investigation. Zerlina, I'm going to take exception with that characterization for the moment, because what it looks like is Donald Trump and Bill Barr weaponizing the Department of Justice to go after Donald Trump's sworn enemies. And we say sworn enemies because Donald Trump is on video saying things like, I want Schiff investigated for leaks. Now we know Bill Barr was happy to oblige. And I think it's important for people to know that subpoenas do not go through any judicial scrutiny. Subpoenas rely on the honor and the ethics and the integrity of the prosecutors issuing them. And if anybody is going to bank on Bill Barr's honesty and ethics and integrity when he was issuing these subpoenas, I would have to part ways.
So you quibble, Glenn, with the words leak investigation because you don't think that's the right description. When I read this story, I thought of the word spying. Remember, Donald Trump always used to talk about Obama spying on Trump Towers. So is that the right word, or was this legitimate surveillance or any type of subpoena that was legitimate?
So it would be legitimate if they had what we call predication, a fancy word for some evidence that Schiff or Swalwell were committing crimes. And based on the fact that we never heard anything more about it, no charges were ever brought, no indictments were handed down, this looks like, and you went right to one of the words that's been rattling around in my head, Zerlina, this looks like spying on political enemies. It looks like a smear campaign, and it looks like a gross abuse of the power of the Department of Justice. Melissa,
is there any precedent at all for this kind of action from the Justice Department? I can't think of any, but is there to your knowledge?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head when you referred to this as a norm-busting presidency. This was not a situation where any of the normal orthodoxies held, and this is certainly not something for which I know of any precedent. I will note, however, that at roughly the same time, these congressional members and their families were having their materials subpoenaed. It was the same time that the president was trying to quash a subpoena from Congress to release his own financial records. And again, when that case made it all the way to the United States Supreme Court, one of the arguments on behalf of the president was that Congress was using its power to subpoena to harass the president. And here again, I think Glenn is exactly right. You could read the use of the subpoena power from the Department of Justice as a means of harassing another branch of government into getting them to sort of do your will.
It's so disturbing the more that I think about this story. And Michael, do you think we've grown numb to the abuses of power of the Trump administration? It is not a small thing that the president was tweeting, to Melissa's point, that, the Justice Department should investigate, and he named people, and then they're doing that in the background. What's the danger of this type of abuse of power?
The danger is, the danger of the abuse of power is obvious on its face. It's an abuse of power, and what becomes important is what Melissa and Glenn are talking about, and that is, what does this Justice Department do with this now? Because that, for the rest of us, is where we either go, oh, okay, it's no big deal, or damn, there's a lot here we should be concerned about. And I think the more revelations, the more investigations that are put in front of the American people to show just how corrupt, how gnarly, and how corrupt this past administration was, how it used various agencies as instruments and tools to further that corruption. Look, I'm not going to be. I mean, I admire my buddy Glenn. He's going to call the balls and strikes the right way. This is the law professor. She's going to balance and weigh. Baby, let's just cut right to the nub between those two. This is ugly. And there's a lot of ugly here that we need to be aware of, because I think the IG investigation and other investigations, whether it's from the congressional level or more departments within justice, will discover more. And that clip between the vice president, then United States Senator Harris, and the attorney general, oh my God, you could play that over and over again, knowing what we know now. And you go, that moment when she asked him that question, he went, well, I don't know what the definition of is. That's basically what he was saying in that moment, which means he was trying to figure out how not to lie or get caught in a lie, because that's all he was doing there, because he knew what they were up to.
Yeah, when you watch that clip after this new reporting from the New York Times, it looks very different, and it looked pretty bad at the time. Like, it looked pretty bad. We've played that clip in a variety of contexts since it actually happened. And Glenn, I mean, when I read this story and I sit back and I try to digest it, I link it back to the history that we mentioned that happened at the Watergate Hotel, but it just feels like this is so much worse. How does something like this even happen? Like, what's the process within the Justice Department that allows this to happen? And name names. Who is responsible for allowing this to happen?
Well, the buck stops at the top, Zerlina, and the buck at the Department of Justice stops with Bill Barr. Let me say, we have policies and traditions in place at the Department of Justice that makes it very difficult to issue subpoenas for certain categories of people, reporters, attorneys, sitting politicians. These decisions have to be vetted up through and generally approved by the highest ranks of the Department of Justice, either the number 2, the Deputy Attorney General, or the number 1, Bill Barr. And if I can follow up on my friend Michael's point, when Bill Barr answered that question, just like Michael said, he was trying not to get caught in a lie, but he did get caught in a lie because of the precise questioning by Senator Harris. When he was asked, did anybody ask you to open an investigation? And he didn't want to tell an outright lie. So he said, I don't know. Here's the thing, Zerlina. I don't know is not a perjury-proof answer, because he did know, and he lied about it under oath. And that's why guys like Bill Barr, and especially Donald Trump, these men are going to be the most investigated men in the history of our nation and the least prosecuted men if we don't get off the dime and start to indict people only for the crimes they committed, not for political payback, only for the crimes they committed, so our country and our government can begin to move forward.
Glenn, just to follow up, in terms of the Deputy Attorney General, we know the name of that person. That's Rod Rosenstein. What role would he have had in this process, if any?
So when it comes to these very sensitive subpoenas, as I say, reporters, lawyers, politicians, that's going to get vetted up typically through the Deputy Attorney General. Remember, 1 week after Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco was confirmed, what did we have? We had a search warrant issued for Rudy Giuliani's stuff because a federal judge concluded there is probable cause to believe there's evidence of crime in Rudy Giuliani's stuff. That was undoubtedly approved, as it would be generally institutionally, by the number 2, the Deputy Attorney General Lisa Monaco. So listen, Rod Rosenstein is in this corruption for a pound. If he had any involvement in these subpoenas and and we find that they were baseless, there was no evidence supporting them, it was pure political payback.
This is so disturbing. The more that I'm processing it, Michael, a number of Senate Democrats are calling on Jeff Sessions and Bill Barr to testify about these subpoenas. How aggressive should Congress be in getting to the bottom of all of this, especially with so much else on their plate right now?
Aggressive as hell, because it goes to how we started this conversation. This is about whether or not fundamental institutions that play a vital role in the checks and balances between the executive branch and the legislative branch, between the American people and its government, those things have to be shored up. This Congress, this Justice Department under Merrick Garland cannot sleepwalk through this. They cannot be, play it soft out of fear of stepping on someone's political toes, because if you don't, you are crushing the very foundation on which we as citizens, we the people, trust going forward, whether or not the men and women who serve in these jobs are doing their best effort to represent us at all times. So they have to take this seriously, and they have to, as Glenn noted, don't go out there and play the political cards. Play the legal cards that are right in front of you in terms of the investigation and the facts and the evidence that your own departments are putting out there. And so if they do that, I think the American people will be the winner in the end here.
Melissa, I owe you a question, but we are out of time in this segment, unfortunately. I think we're going to still be talking about this next week, so leave your schedule open. We would love to have you back, all of you, actually. My thanks to Glenn Kirshner, Melissa Murray, and my friend Michael Steele, who will be filling in for me this same time next week. So that's very exciting. Please stay safe. Everybody have a great weekend. Hi, I'm Zerlina Maxwell. Thanks for checking out our channel on YouTube. You can see more from Zerlina by clicking any of the videos on this screen, and make sure you subscribe below to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. Thanks for watching.